What we have here is the carry bag that your Chas Everitt unit comes in. Everything is inside here, from the perspex sleeves through to the fascia, as well as the feet and all the connecting parts. What I'm going to show you now is how it all goes into the bag before we start to assemble the unit. When you put the bag down, just be very careful to lay it down slowly, as you do not want to damage any of the perspex or the fascia inside here. Once we have the zip opened up, you will see that there are a few compartments here. The smallest compartment is for your aluminium. All your poles and braces go in there. The one directly next to the poles is for your perspex sleeves. These are covered in the protective fabric and slide in here quite easily. These slot above that has your box with all your components in, your Allen keys and your cables. In the exact same section we have the feet, and in the section above that we have the fascia panel for the top of the unit. These all slide in very easily, making it easy to disassemble and assemble the unit wherever you are. What we're going to do now is take you through assembling the unit step by step. The procedure to disassemble the unit is exactly the same as assembling it, just in reverse. These are the parts that come in the Chas Everitt kit for your point of sale display unit. These are the poles and braces that form the frame of the entire unit. We then have 2 feet that connect on the sides of the frame. Your box full of connectors and cables, which I'll show you how to put together once we start assembling. Fascia with double-sided graphics, your carry bag, and your set of perspex sleeves with cable connectors already attached. We are going to start assembling this kit bit by bit, showing you exactly how to put it together. It is fairly simple. You only need really 2 Allen keys, and it will all go together quite quickly. This is the contents of your box with your tools, your cables and your connectors for your feet. These are your cables that slot into the frame, and then your perspex sleeves slide onto these, and they'll get fastened on with the small Allen key over here. This big Allen key is to connect the frame up. This larger Allen key is also for the cable connectors on the brochure pockets, but you will really need this because the connectors are already on the perspex brochure pockets. These connectors here are what connect your feet onto the sides of the actual frame. We're going to start assembling this unit now, taking it step by step, and it should be put together quite quickly. These 2 poles here are for the sides of the frame, and these 2 here as well. These are your braces. This is your bottom brace that your cables connect into. This is your top brace that your cables connect into, and this is completely the top brace of the entire unit. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start assembling the bottom half of the unit with the feet. Then we're going to put together the top part of the unit with the fascia, and we'll put the 2 together then. Alright, what we got here is the bottom half of our frame. This is my one of the side poles. This is the other side pole, and this is my bottom brace. The way this all connects together is the tension locks over here on the sides of the actual unit. You use your star Allen key to tighten the tension lock into the grooves on the poles. The whole system works like this. It's fairly simple to put together. What I'm going to do now is assemble the bottom half of this frame. What you need to do is line up the tension lock into the bottom of the frame. Take your star Allen key and turn it clockwise to tension the lock. What happens then is the two connectors push apart and cause tension inside there, connecting the brace to the actual pole. Exactly the same procedure on the other side. Slide it in together. If it's not connecting properly over here, like you can see there's a gap, what it means is that my tension lock isn't closed all the way. So what I need to do then is make sure it's all the way to the right. It seems like it is. And slot it in, a little bit of a push there, line up the two edges, take your star Allen key again and start to turn it clockwise. You'll see as soon as you start to turn it clockwise, the gap actually closes because the lock actually starts to bite. And you do not have to turn this too tight, just enough so that it's biting. You'll be able to feel that it's not moving apart, then you know it's fine. And that is the bottom half of the frame, which we are now going to attach the feet onto. These are your thumb screws for connecting your feet onto the poles of the unit. We're going to put the feet onto the bottom half of the frame that we've just assembled now. What we're going to do is we're going to flip the unit onto its side, which is the easiest way to actually connect the feet. So, you flip the unit up onto its side like this. These are your two connections over here that you need to put the feet onto. Very easy to put the feet on. And just line up like this. There we go. You take one of your thumb screws and you start tightening clockwise. Not too tight again, just enough so that it's biting, because you don't want to strip any of the threads on the thumb screws. Exactly the same on the top. Simple as that. Exactly the same procedure on the other side. Flip the unit around. Much easier to balance now that it's got a foot on the other side. Up with the holes, make sure it is in place, and just take your thumb screws, just enough so that it's biting. There we go. And now we have the base of our unit assembled. Very easy. What we're going to do now is assemble the top half and then connect both halves together, after which we will connect the cables into the cable connectors. What we have here is the top half of the frame. These are your two poles. What you need to make sure of is that the smooth side of the pole is always on the outside of your frame. The groove is on the inside of your frame. You have a hole at the bottom of the frame that connects up to the bottom half of the entire unit, which we've just assembled. What we're going to do now is connect the braces up to this and then assemble the top half of this entire unit. So what you need to do first is just space out your poles so that you have enough space for your first brace. Your first brace is going to be this top one over here. Line it up exactly like we did on the bottom. Push the tension lock through the groove and then use your star Allen key to twist to the clockwise to the left to tighten the pole to the brace. As you can see, this is lined up, and the slot over there is the groove over here has vanished now. We know that it's tight. Next thing to do is to take your fascia, carefully slide it into the pole and then start to slide it into the brace groove as well, pushing it towards the corner that we've just tightened, and we know it is completely in place. Very easy thing to do. Then we take our brace that has our top connectors for our cables, and we are going to guide this into the slot over here, being very careful to make sure that our fascia goes into the groove. Once it's loosely in, just push everything together to make sure that you are happy that it is in nice and tight, and then start Allen key again, clockwise, tighten it up just until it bites, and there we go, we have part of the frame assembled. Now it's just a simple matter of putting the other pole on the other side, line up your fascia, line up your tension locks, making sure that the top of the unit here is flush, pull and brace. Yet again, clockwise, tighten it just so that it bites. Exactly the same on the bottom over here. Tighten it just so that it bites. And then we now have the top half of the unit put together. What we're going to do now is connect the two halves together. This is the bottom half of our frame. It is now standing up. What you can see here is a screw and a washer which you need to remove in order to put the top half of the frame onto this connection here. The hole that I showed you previously on the top half of the frame lines up with this hole, then your washer and your nut then connect the two halves together. Exactly the same scenario on this side here. Just use your start Allen key, get rid of your nut and your washer to make it easy to connect the two units together. Keep these handy as we're going to need them as we put the top half of the unit together with the bottom half. Now we're going to start assembling the top half and the bottom half of the entire frame after we've taken the nut and washer out of the bottom half of the unit. Grab your top half of your unit. It is not heavy at all. Let's take a few steps back and line it up with the holes on the bottom half of the unit. Once they're lined up and slotted on, the unit is stable. It's not going to fall apart. As you can see, this is where our screw and our washer are going to connect both halves together. Now what you need to do is just get the screw and washer out that you have taken off the bottom half previously. Put the washer on first, then your screw, tighten it by hand first just so that it's biting as much as possible. Start Allen key again, exactly the same procedure, clockwise tightening just until it bites, and that's as easy as it is to connect the halves together. Exactly the same procedure on this side. Take your washer. Your washer does have two sides. It's got a concave side here that the actual screw fits in very nicely. You can see on the other side here that it is a bit of an extrusion on the side and it won't actually line up nicely. This stops the washer from moving around inside here. So always make sure that your screw fits in properly first over here like this, and then you can connect the two up. So again, tighten it by hand just to make sure that the screw is in nicely, and then just take your Allen key again, your star Allen key, and clockwise just until it bites, and that is as easy as it is to line up both halves of the unit. As you can see now, we've got our frame pretty much assembled. What I've done is I've got all my tension locks on one side as well as the screws all on one side. It just makes the unit look much neater if you have everything on one side as opposed to half and half. What we're going to do now is connect up our cables to our cable slot over here at the top, line up our cable, connect it up to the bottom corresponding cable connector. We can tension those in. They have got a spring in, so you can tension the cables in, and then we are going to connect the brochure pockets up to the cables. You have three cables which are able to be tensioned via spring inside these cable connectors here. This is what your brochure pockets actually connect up to. There are three packets like this in your connector box that comes with this whole system. What you have here is the bottom connector that goes into your bottom brace and your top connector that goes into your top brace on the frame that we've just assembled. It's very easy to connect up. What we're going to do first is we're going to connect the bottom one where the spring is loaded, and then we're going to connect the top half of the cable to the unit. So we have our bottom connector here, which is going to be connected first to our bottom brace. The bottom brace will already have the the cable connector pre-installed into it. All you need to do is take your cable with its spring connector and start to attach it onto here. Just tighten it enough so that it starts to bite. Once it's in here, we're going to connect the top, and then we're going to fine tune it and tension the cable in. So here we've got our top connector, sorry. We're going to connect this up and then tension the cable together. Very easy as well. Just line it up, start to tighten it on. You'll already start to feel that the cable starts to get some tension into it. So give it a fairly good tighten over here until it's fairly taut. Then go back down to the bottom and start to tighten your bottom connector in, remembering always to go clockwise when you're tightening. Now you can see there is a fair amount of tension in this cable. When you take this off, it's very important that you loosen this very slightly so that it's still biting. Go back up to the top of the cable and counterclockwise loosen the unit. That way you will not injure yourself when the cable comes off, as the tension is released gradually. Alright. I've just tightened it back on here so that we have tension. As you can see, there is tension in here now, which is perfect. Exactly the same procedure for the other two cables here. Connect them up bottom first. Just make sure it's biting. Start connecting the top. Once you're happy that they're both in, tighten the bottom one a little bit more, then come back and tighten the top one up a little bit more. The unit is assembled with the cables on now. I've just put on the other two cables. The connections are also going to be pre-installed onto your top brace and onto your bottom brace. All you need to do is just connect the cables up, as I explained earlier on. What we're going to do now is unwrap our brochure sleeves, which will then also have cable connectors on, which tighten onto these cables via an Allen key. What I have here is the set of sleeves, Perspex sleeves that have cable connectors on. They come wrapped in this white fabric, which just prevents them from getting scratched inside the carry bag. What we're going to do is we're going to take this actual unit and connect it up onto the cables that we've just previously installed. These connections are a bit sensitive. So when you are transporting it, please be careful. As you can see, this flexes quite a bit, and any sharp jolt and the Perspex might actually be damaged. So when transporting, please just be aware of this, and everything then should be fine. We have here one of the sets of Perspex sleeves with all our cable connectors connecting the two together. What we're going to do first is, just for safety's sake, so that the actual connectors don't get scratched or the Perspex, whenever you're assembling this on site, just put down your piece of fabric that protects the actual sleeves, then put the sleeve onto that. What you need to do is, each connector has a grub screw that actually holds the cable onto this set over here. So what you need to do is you need to take your smallest Allen key, just put it into the grub screw and start turning counterclockwise just to take the grub screw out, as we don't need this in the actual unit right now. Once we have them lined up onto the cables, we start adding the grub screws one by one, tightening the pockets onto the cables as we go along. The center connections have grub screws in the middle because the center cable runs through the center of these two sleeves. The outer two cable connectors on each pocket has the grub screw on the outside of the connector. It's just a simple matter of taking the grub screws out. It's very important that you don't lose these grub screws, as these are the things that actually hold the Perspex sleeves onto the actual cables. Without them, the unit won't be able to be put onto the cables. It's the last two grub screws here. They are quite loose already, so if you can do them by hand, it's a bit easier. Alright, now we have all the grub screws out on the cable connecting side of the cable connectors. What we are going to do now is mount this first pocket on. All the other pockets are mounted exactly the same way. I'm going to roughly space them out. Once I've got them on the actual frame, we'll start spacing out the pockets, fine-tuning it a little bit better. What we've got here is our set of Perspex sleeves with the grub screws that hold the cables, the unit onto the cables taken off. Easiest way to mount this is to make sure that your slot over here is facing you. What we're going to do then is we're going to take this set, move it behind the cables, and then just start to move it onto the actual cables, putting grub screws first on the outer connectors, and then lastly connecting the center one onto the cables. So what you need to do is take this unit onto the back, start to wind up your outer cables. These are your most important ones, as these are the ones that actually initially hold the sleeves onto the cables. As you can see, it's already all pre-lined up for me, so it's just a matter of fine-tuning it. What you can do with the top one, this top set of pockets, is make sure that you line up the pocket close enough so that you can drop in your piece of paper, but not too close that it becomes awkward to do. So I would say leave about 5 centimeters over here. That should be comfortable for our first pocket over here, and then we can fine tune it later on. What you need to do then, an easy way of doing this is hold it in the center like I'm holding it now. As you can see, it's not going anywhere. I'm pushing it towards myself, which means it's onto the cables. Then what I need to do is just reach into my pocket, grab one of the grub screws. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my fingers just to tighten it onto here. This is a little bit fiddly, but once you've got the first one on here, you'll see that it's not going to go anywhere. Then I'm going to start slowly moving around the actual unit and putting the grub screws on. I'm going to start on the bottom one over here now, just tightening on with my fingers as much as possible. It should almost be touching the cable when you've attached it with your fingers correctly. Right, you're going to get shifted a bit, but that's fine because it is still loose. Line up your pockets on the other side again. Just look for your grub screw, and then just use your fingers as before to tighten the grub screw on initially. Final outside grub screw onto the cable connector. Always remembering never to let go of the pockets, because even though we are tightening these on by hand, this sleeve set will slide all the way down and break if you do let go of it. Now that we've got our grub screws on, you can see it's not going to come off of the cables, but it is still loose. It's going to go up and down. This is the second largest Allen key in the set of 3 that you will get with your set. This is used to connect the cable connectors onto your cables. So, as I was saying, you take your Allen key and you tighten the cable connector onto the cable. As you can see now, it's starting to bite on that top connector. Move over to your left hand one. Just make sure that they are still lined up at the top, it's fairly level, and just start to tighten it until it bites again. These ones you can tighten a little bit more than the other tension screws because you want these to be on here quite firmly. As you can see, the unit is not going to go anywhere now. If for whatever reason you do not tighten any of the other ones, it is still secure like this. What I'm going to do is tighten all these other ones on here now, the outer ones. So tight. As you can see, I don't have to support the unit anymore because it's actually biting onto the cables. Now, I have not connected the center grub screws on here. You don't necessarily have to connect them up if you don't want to. The unit is still going to be fine. This cable is not going to come out of here unless someone really bumps it hard. And even if they do bump it out, it wants to by default go back into the slot. For safety's sake, I'm going to put it on here anyway. These ones don't have to be too tight, just on there, just till they're biting to hold the grub screw onto the cable. Last grub screw now. Tighten it onto just until it bites, and then you have one set of pockets connected onto your cables. As you can see, it's not going anywhere. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put on the other sleeves. Once those are all on, I will start to fine tune it. I can space them out a bit more as I need to. It's just a matter of preference. As I say, leave about 5 centimeters at the top here for your top one. just so that you can get your hand in here to your thumb slot over here, your finger slot where your paper slides in, so that you can easily pull out your paper and slide in a new sheet. I'm going to start putting the other pieces, the other sets of pockets on now, sleeves, and then we will fine tune the unit, after which we will slide in some material and the unit is then assembled. All the sleeves are now spaced out onto the actual unit. Like I said before, you can actually space them out however you want to, whatever makes it easy for you to get the material in and out of the actual sleeves. What I'm going to show you now is how to slot in a piece of A4 paper, two pieces of A4 paper into this unit. You can see on the side here you have a slot cut out over here. This is so that when the paper is actually completely in the unit, you have a corner that you can pull out to easily remove a sheet of paper. I have an A4 piece of paper which I'm going to slot into one of the Perspex sleeves now. Very easy. Line up at the top there, slide it in and drop it in like that. As you can see on the corner here, this is where your thumb slot is to make it easy to remove the piece of paper. It is as easy as that to put material in. These are double-sided, so you can put in another piece of paper very easily as well on the other side, and then just slide them in and out as you need to replace the material.